This is Stephanie at Hightower Stitching. Hey everyone. Today I have a fun quilt block for you to make, and it'll make a beautiful quilt the way it's coming together. It's from the Love of Quilting, March, April of this year, page 10. And what I want to do is go through picking my material, looking at the components of a block, and then actually showing you some things that I learned about sewing the block together. So stay tuned. This is the picture of the quilt pattern from the book so that you can see the whole thing was made with 30 blocks if you wanted to make it that big, but you can see that you don't have to. It has 2-inch sashing around the outside and then 2-inch setting squares in between and a 5-inch border. So basically it really has about 7.5 or 8 yards of material for the backing, so it'll be kind of big, but it's a fun quilt to do. I've already got about I've got about 20 out of the 30 blocks done, and I did the first ones by hand, and so I have only a couple of things about that when we come to those parts. The print parts of the quilt don't take a lot of material, so you can actually make a scrappy quilt if you wanted to, and use pieces. The backing, though, takes more. The backing ground for your quilt takes more. And I think I've got that written somewhere as we go, and it'll be in the description. First thing I did was I picked out a fabric that had a lot of colors in it. I've finally gotten smart about that. Instead of just trying to mix things, I go ahead and just pick something, and then I picked my cream background. Then after I got that, I said, okay, well, let's see some colors that would go with that. And I ended up with a couple of greens and a rust. Now, that's a nice pile. It's not enough, though, because the way this pattern goes, if you'll look, you're going to need 9 fabrics and make 2 blocks. You're going to need 4 fabrics, and those were the first ones I just showed you, and you'd use 3 blocks. Now, to me, that's like a suggested amount of each one, because I've already altered a couple of them and made more of my main fabrics, and then I got ready to pick out the other 9, and boy, what a challenge it can be, but it fell into place. And I ended up picking out another cream that went with it, another rust, another cream color, and then finally I said, I don't have blue. And I found a blue that laid with it. And it's really funny, you'd say it wouldn't, but it does. And it's the right kind of depth in there. The only ones that were lighter were these tan background, but those looked really good on there. And you're going to be cutting 4 pieces for each block, 4 different pieces. So here's what they are. You're going to have your background color, and this you're going to cut 4 of those, and they're 3.5-inch squares. You're going to have another block, and this is your print. You're going to have 4 blocks, and they're 3.5-inch squares. Getting sort of fun there, isn't it? And then you're going to have your print, a large print, and it's 7 3/4 inch square. And then you're going to have the last one, which is the background again. And the thing about this pattern is it shows you how to make your 8 half triangle squares using this piece of fabric with the lines drawn in it. And I'm going to show you those in a minute, because you're going to have 2 diagonal lines from corner to corner, and then you're going to come out 1/4 of an inch on the outside of each of those and do that. And if you've done this, it's really fun. Then, and I don't want to repeat myself, but I probably will. The other thing I did was went ahead and folded it in half and put a little crease and marked it on each one of the sides, and because I folded it the other way and marked it, and that's going to be one of your cutting lines that's going to help to make your 8 squares. And so there again, the green line is my diagonal, and then the black lines are going to be my sewing lines. And when I marked them, I went back to this tool, and I've done it both ways, and you can just use your ruler and mark off a fourth. Or if you find something like this, it's really neat, because then you can do both of them if you hold it really careful, because this is a big square. And then here again, I've put my marks where my other cuts are going to be made going into the center. And one of the things that I like, especially because this one was so big, and I was going to put this on there, is to get a piece of sandpaper. Now, I got one that, what I had was a coarse one, and it doesn't have to, it worked, and then that makes it easier to use my mechanical pencil to take and go across there. And you may have seen that one. That's a great idea. Once you get your lines drawn, then you're ready to cut these to make your squares. And you're going to do the diagonal, side to side, and side to side. And what I found was, I want to be real careful when I do this, not so much the cutting as setting the piece down. This one's going to be a little hard on this right now, but I just set it down, and you say, I know how to do that. I know you do. And then I just go straight across. Here's my part, though, is I pick it up by the other edge to get ready to move it. Then it won't come apart. And then lay it down on another one of the lines that you want to do. Cut it across, and then gently pick it up, and so it'll stay there, because it gets aggravating to keep sliding them back together. That was my 2 diagonals. Now I've got to get my 2, and that's where my marks came in really handy. Right there, and right there. And I'm just going to cut across. I'll pick it up carefully again. And then go across. And some of you are going to say, well, I already know how to do that. Well, I was sort of looking at beginning people also, because this is a great project. Then once you get those, I just take my cutter, my scissors, or my cutter. You can cut this apart with scissors. Then you're ready to open it up. And then I took and pressed mine open, because I like to do that. You can leave them and iron them to one side, and you might just try that with your first block to see which way you'd rather do it. I just don't like the bulk, but I take and cut all those little ends off of that triangle, and I do it at an angle back towards the center, away from the center and back, and then it's perfect for making those. And you'll have 8 of those. If you decide to, excuse me, if you decide to hand stitch it, the only tricky thing, and it's not tricky, really bad at all, is that as you're sewing, I started right at the center, but look where I've got my mark. I've come a little way down from the center block that you draw, and I started there and went down. Then I do this one, and that left enough room between there for me to cut with my scissors, and I watched that I didn't cut those knots off, and it wasn't hard, and I said, well, that solves that problem. And just for fun, I made you a supersized pattern that when you look at it, and this has all of your pieces, those ones that we just had, and we're going to look at this as row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4. And then I came back and looked at these. I put all of the numbers on there, and you can do that. But I also looked at these as row 1's pair 1, pair 2, pair 3, pair 4, and then numbered them down through there, and that made it easy to do. So now I think I'm to the place I'm going to move to the sewing machine for a minute. I took a little detour through the room where I laid things out on the floor, and you can see the ones that I've gotten finished. And then I've already cut my strips for the sashing, because you need 49 of those. And they're 2 inches by 12.5 inches. Okay, we're back to the sewing machine. I'm going to have a couple of things. I'm going to have my scissors. I'm going to have a ripper because I get it, and I was working and it went perfect, and then all of a sudden I just turned one. And it's amazing how many times that'll happen, even though you're being very careful. And my scissor, and then I've got the part to start. And then I went ahead and cut myself a little cheat sheet and hooked it in the corner so that I can look at that when I look at my pairs. And I wanted you to see that I've already got row 1 and 2 put together. And because I wasn't going back to the sewing machine, I'd open them and finger press them, and that'll hold them. But then if you want to do them a little different, or a little better, and hold, then you can just run that purple roller across there if you have one like that, or anything that'll roll across there. So let's look at row 3. And row 3 is showing 2 of your special squares together that have 2 colors in them. And we're going to take and lay them together. Now this really helped me, was as I did these, I would lay them exactly the way they were supposed to look, which makes good sense. But if you don't pick them up right, or you get distracted, I think usually it's a distraction, then you can mess it up. But this one I know I need a pyramid. I'm going to have 2 pyramids. So I fold it back over so I know it'll open up the way I want it to. Now with these, the part that you want to start with is up here at the corner where your 2 colors for your pyramid come together, and you're going to come out 1/4 of an inch and sew that. And the reason that you want to do that way is going to become evident in just a minute. Okay, get it lined up. There you go. Now, if you look at the very top of that pyramid, you can see I've got a really nice 1/4 inch looking area there that I can get, and that should make it come out just right when I sew the rows together. So before I do that, I just want to, it's easier for me just to do it as I go piece by piece. And so that's the first part. All right, and then the next one is showing another one of the squares with the 2 colors in it. And let's see, get it turned. Here we go. And there, the white's up. All right, and this should be laying down. Then just a solid square. That one's not hard. Okay, I'm going to put it in the same position. And this is where you get messed up if you go, if you start moving it around. So say, okay, I know that was the side's got to be, that has to be sewed. And it happened to me more the longer I went, because I think I just said, oh, I know how to do this. Well, I did, but sometimes I turned them the wrong way because I get distracted, like I said. All right, and let's see if we got this one right. Yep, okay. I'm supposed to have this part here and then this square. Then that brings us to right away going ahead and sewing those together. And I actually worked them in pairs, and like I was saying to you, and so I'd go ahead and put the first pair together, just sew it, and I chain stitched by going on to the second pair, then I went on to the third pair and a fourth pair until I got all the way done, and I had all of my pairs of those. And then I would start with the first ones that I did and cut the first 2 off and put them together. That would make the first row. Then I did the next 2, that'd make the next row, went on down through there. And that actually made it fun. I tried at the beginning doing 2 blocks at the same time. That wasn't fun. I thought I was being real efficient, but I spent more time trying to figure out which 2 went together, even though they were stacked together. So I'm going to take and move that one out of the way. And let's go back I know this is fast. I just wanted to make sure I hit all the important things. And so when I got those done, I was down to my 4 rows. Okay, and this is the top row and the second row, and it is right. And so I have it right. I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to take and come and pin. And you'd say, well, I don't really need to pin it. Well, it depends on how quickly you need your quilt. It depends on how accurate that you want to be when you get to turn it over. And we'll look at this one in a minute when I get it. I just wanted you to see. And there, because I open my seams, I lay them on top of each other, make sure they're lined up. Then I take my pin and put it at an angle. Now, if you had folded yours to, or wanted to fold it to a side, you'd fold one to one side and one the back to the other side. So now I'm ready to go down my 1/4 inch. And I'm using black thread so that it would show up. Now watch out for that pin, not lucky. And I will make sure that that stays open. My machine will let it turn. And I've tried different things, sticking a piece of cardboard or index card or tape on it, and it still wants to catch. But this is my hobby. This is what I do. So I'm going to do it the way I want to do it and take my time. Now, if we're lucky, everything will line up because we pinned it. Okay, let's look and see what we got. Oh, I can live with that. I have, this comes together very nicely. This one's really nice. And this one's close enough that I didn't even notice it at first. Because sometimes your blocks are off, but it still fits really well. And I probably could have tugged that a little bit, but I had it pinned, so I don't know. But here again, look at the pyramids. Because I started at the top of the pyramid when I sewed that piece together. It lined up really nice with that. And I want to close by showing you the main color that I've got and the background color for the box, and see that my pyramids are really good. That one and that one, and then where they come together. And it's got to do with being careful when you cut, sewing on your 1/4 line, and then watching the orientation on this one. So this is Stephanie at Hightower Stitching. I hope you enjoyed this block. I can't wait to start putting the quilt together, but I'm not going to do it till I get all my colors put together. Then I'm going to go back and I'll be ready to put it together. Anything that I forgot or that you might need to know, I'll put right in the description. Thank you for watching.